If you've been scrolling through endless forums, watching countless unboxing videos, and still feel stuck between a good enough interface and the holy grail of studio gear, this review is meant to clear the fog. You've probably wondered whether spending a few $1,000s on an Apollo will actually change the way you sound, or if you're just buying hype. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what it's like to bring the Universal Audio Apollo 4 Gen 2 into a real-world home or project studio, and see who really benefits from its price tag and who can safely walk away. First off, the Apollo 4 isn't just another USB-C box you plug into a laptop. It's a Thunderbolt 3 audio interface that brings a full DSP engine to your desk, letting you run UAD plugins in real time without taxing your computer's CPU. In practice, that means you can fire up a classic Neve preamp emulation while you record a vocalist and hear that analog warmth immediately, instead of having to reamp later. For engineers who record live bands or do quick turnaround mixes, that instant analog character is a genuine time saver. On the flip side, if you only ever track a single singer at home with a basic DAW, you might never tap into the full 200-plus plugin library, making the DSP horsepower feel like overkill. Setting up the X4 is surprisingly painless for a device that packs 4 unison preamps, 2 line inputs, and a pair of monitor outputs. You connect the Thunderbolt cable, launch the UAD console, and the interface does an automatic firmware check. The auto gain feature is where the magic becomes practical. You plug in a microphone, click the button, and the console sets a sensible input level across all channels in seconds. In my own workflow, that eliminated the endless back and forth of fiddling with trim knobs, especially when switching between a drum kit and a vocal booth in the same session. The trade-off, though, is that you need a Thunderbolt-compatible Mac or PC. Older laptops or budget Windows rigs without Thunderbolt will simply refuse to see the unit, which can be a costly hidden limitation for some buyers. One of the most talked about aspects of universal audio gear is the unison preamp technology. The X4 gives you 4 of those, each capable of mimicking the impedance, gain structure, and even the transformer characteristics of vintage hardware. In a practical scenario, I ran a Shure SM57 into a unison-emulated API 512C while tracking a snare, and the result was an unmistakable punch that I'd normally have to achieve with a hardware preamp and a separate MIC pre. That kind of tonal fidelity can make the difference between a good drum track and one that sits perfectly in a mix. The downside is that the unison preamps are not infinitely flexible. If you need a specialty preamp that's not in UAD's library, you'll still have to resort to external gear. Also, the unison emulations are tied to the DSP, so heavy plugin usage can eat up the processing budget, forcing you to prioritize which channels get the premium modeling. The monitoring side of the X4 often gets overlooked, but it's where the Apollo monitor corrections shine. The interface measures the acoustic response of your room and applies a corrective curve so that what you hear on headphones or speakers is a flatter, more accurate representation. I tried it in a modest bedroom with untreated walls. The correction helped tame a pronounced bass boom without any external EQ. If you already have a calibrated monitoring setup, you might not notice a huge difference, but for anyone on a shoestring budget who can't afford acoustic treatment, this built-in correction adds measurable value. The catch is that the correction works best when you let the system analyze the room through the supplied test tones. If you skip that step, you're essentially running a plain vanilla output. Who should actually consider spending on the Apollo 4? If you're a freelance engineer who juggles multiple clients, need to run high-end plugins while tracking, and value the ability to get analog-style tone at the click of a button, the X4 pays for itself in saved studio time and fewer outboard rack units. It also makes sense for producers who like to experiment with classic gear emulations during the creative process, because the real-time feel can spark ideas you might never get from offline processing. Conversely, if you're a bedroom hobbyist who records a podcast once a week, uses mostly stock DAW effects, and doesn't plan to upgrade your computer to Thunderbolt soon, the Apollo 4 is probably more than you need. A cheaper U-series interface or a solid USB-C audio card would cover those basics without the extra DSP cost. Another hidden trade-off lies in the software ecosystem. The UAD plugin suite is a subscription-free, one-time purchase, but each plugin still carries a premium price tag. When you factor in the cost of a full collection of classics, some of which run $200 or more per unit, you quickly realize that the true value of the Apollo isn't just the hardware, it's the bundle of emulations that become instantly usable. If you already own a sizable UAD